Survival never changes. Hello right guys, it's Jade. Welcome to the top 30 survival games you need to know about, releasing hopefully in 2022. Take this with a pinch of salt, things do get delayed as we should all know, but this is the pick of what I think is going to be good and big in 2022. Unique games, PvP survival games, big open world bug riding games, and some of the big hitters that you've come to expect maybe. I've covered survival games for 5 years now, so hopefully I can give you a bit of in-depth knowledge about the status of these games, where they're at and what to expect once they release. I've split it up into categories, so if you do want to skip a certain type of game, then you can do so with the timestamps. Go ahead, I won't come round to your house and break your legs, I promise. Also, quick plug, go and check out my second channel, JADE-Craft, the home of more chilled survival, crafty and indie games from now on. I've already done a video giving 15 of the big ones that I'm going to be playing on that second channel, so go and check it out. The links will be in the comment section down below. So let's go, leave a like for this video at least, and the 30 top survival games I'm expecting in 2022. At first glance, Honeycomb, which is a single player first person survival game, looks very much like a rip-off of Subnautica, maybe just set on land instead of in the water. But actually, when you delve deeper, you find this game is all about bioengineering and has got a worthy cause. It wants to highlight the plight of bees. You'll be going around and exploring an alien planet, trying to fight off diseases, find cures for all sorts of things, and do lots of research into botanical and some of the flora and fauna all around. You'll have to protect yourself against some of the diseases as well, and it's definitely got a bit more of a flavour in simulation and that building aspect too. It is made by Playway, that company that releases about 100 new trailers each year, and pretty much if they're successful in terms of views, they'll start actually making the full-blown game or give funding to some of these developers to actually do it. So hopefully it has achieved its target. Nothing I've seen on the Steam site says it's not progressing, and Honeycomb could be potential for next year. Even if it does look like some of the games you've played in before, it's pretty unique in its premise. Retreat to Enen is going to be a single player and co-op survival simulation game where you'll be surviving in a tropical paradise set thousands and thousands of years in the future where humankind nearly became extinct. It's your job to basically start life again. You'll be doing all sorts of crazy things like meditation as you gather, hunt, get resources and use a really fantastic UI system. I love the way that you can actually just plot stuff down in blueprint form just from your watch and scroll through. It felt like I was actually seeing a VR game, but don't worry, this is purely just a normal survival game. This game really is unique because it's designed to help with your mental fortitudes. They've actually consulted mental health experts in delivering something that will help you unwind, relax and decompress from the proper real life shenanigans. It's promising lots of different locales in its tropical setting, beaches, forests and maybe some more plateaus as you go around just basically surviving and coming across all sorts of exotic wildlife and features. So again, while it may seem like it's pretty generalistic with survival mechanics, it's definitely got a new way of showing it off and I like the ethos behind it. Another game that on closer inspection looks like it might be echoing a little bit too much of others like Satisfactory or Subnautica, but the Planet Crafter is very different. You are going to be basically tasked with terraforming this red dusty planet into something green and lush. You'll explore lots of wreckages as you gather all sorts of resources using your scanner/drill, making these style pods, building up your bases, eventually unlocking the technology to start terraforming the planet and adding lots of green, lush jungles, forests and lakes. I quite like the palette style of this. It's really colourful, it's really nice and it's got that vibe to it. At the moment there's no much danger shown off in any of the demos or the gameplay vlogs, so it looks like it might be a bit more of a peaceful experience, but who knows how they develop it in the coming year. A single player crafting, building, survival simulation game like no other. Outpost Glacier has been on my radar for a long time now. It's been developed by a very small team that have had a demo up on the itch.io site for a number of years now. It is going to be a single player or co-op focused game where you basically be building up resources to craft new technology and kind of set up automation. It looks like the power is going to be a big component in this game. Think of games maybe a bit like Astroneer or again Satisfactory and you get the idea. All the while trying to survive in cold, snowy atmosphere and against somewhat familiar but somewhat exotic Arctic animals. Expect lots of min and maxing about how much power and energy consumption you're using to craft and get new technology, and of course a fair share of running away from big giant creatures too. If that's all too much, why don't you have a little cuddle? Not a lot of gameplay to show off in Tribe Primitive Builder, but basically you are going to be in charge of your own tribe and you've got to build your own village. all the while keeping the inhabitants happy as you craft, gather new resources and unlock future designs for tools and base parts. Single player only, and at some point hopefully in 2022. Towers first got announced over 2 years ago nearly now, and it's a curious blend of anime, co-op and multiplayer action, where the win condition isn't to go and destroy other players' bases, but to actually build up towers and settlements. Now things have changed in that time. They went quiet for a long time as they sought investment, but they've now got a proper reputable publisher behind them, so it looks like Towers will be a reality at some point hopefully in 2022. The trailer was like nothing I'd seen before, with the devs promising that over 80% of the footage shown was actual proper pathing gameplay. Of course, setting up a tech demo or slice is still a lot easier than making a fully fledged game, but it looks incredible, mixing up styles of Monster Hunter alongside typical survival fare with Breath of the Wild sort of visuals and a really dark, brooding atmosphere when you fight off against hordes of evil entities to stop them destroying your towers. I really love the idea of the win condition, or setting it up in a different way that you'll have to grow plants and heal the world around you to really progress through the game and keep it defending against these dark creatures. That's something pretty unique, and I can't wait for Towers. Frozen Flame's been around a while and they've had betas going for a good long time. It got successfully kickstarted and it looks like it's coming along very nicely. It's an MMO survival game where you'll be doing lots of base building, taking on lots of quests and fighting off against all sorts of enemies and mobs. It does have elements of PvP in it if you choose that. I do believe it's going to have separate servers, so if you really want a bit of a bloodthirsty fantasy vibe, then you can go and take a look at this one. It has got them sort of Fortnite visuals, cute and colourful, but don't be misled, there's a bunch of depth to this. I gave it a shot a little while ago and for sure I'm keen to see how progress has been made on it. I really like the colourful atmosphere of this one. I don't think survival games need to always be dark and gritty, so yeah, checking this out soon, hopefully at some point mid 2022. Although curiously it does still state that it could be launching this year, but I think it will be pushed back. The Serpent Rogue is more of an action indie potion making game than strictly just survival, but it does have them mechanics in it where you need food and water as you go and explore various different smaller stages, gathering resources to build up better equipment and better potions to take on the blight that has suffocated your world. Not only will you have to run around gathering these resources and building up better tools, but you can also take on board pets or minions to fight for you, eventually gaining the ability to transform yourself into fantastical creatures also. I really like the vibe for this one. They had a free demo running and it looks like it's going to be releasing on consoles as well as Steam, which is pretty unusual in this big list. With elements of roguelike in it as well, and not strictly a full-blown open world game. A single player only game, but I'm really looking forward to this one. That combination of taming and transforming yourself into creatures and really going out and exploring a fantastical mythological world is definitely something I'm keen on getting hands on early in 2022. One of the few survival games that isn't first or third person viewpoint, V Rising is a vampire survival game, action RPG where you'll run around a huge world with online players. You can have PvP encounters with other players, gather resources, build up your own fortifications, maybe even make your own village or town, as well as obviously get your own resources. You'll be surviving not only just for your bloodlust, but the typical other vampire shenanigans, avoiding daylight and making the most of nighttime. I like this simply because it is a bit different, and the fact they're leaning into survival mechanics with this instead of just a more Torchlight or Diablo experience, I'm really digging the vibe. Hopefully we'll see more news. They've just released this trailer as I was recording this, so it's pretty recent and new, and it does look pretty decent. Expect lots of abilities and all sorts of ways to take on foes as well as other players. Drake's Odds Survive is definitely the worst name I've seen in a while for a game, but I like the premise of this. It's a bit dopey, it's a bit stupid. Yes, you are going to be one of them typical aliens surviving on Earth as you pretty much run around, maybe abducting humans and fighting off against fellow aliens. It is a PvP led game. Think Rust, but with an alien setting set on maybe 90s Earth. Not only will you be doing the basics of looting and gathering resources, finding weapons, you will have the ability to have your own saucer and use it to go and destroy other players or townfolk. Let's just not ask where them anal probes are going to go. With a big crazy environment running around with sandbox style vehicles that you can use, it definitely looks a bit more interesting, a bit more off the wall than anything else you'll see in this list. A full blown MMO? Probably expecting servers with maybe 70 or 80 players on it. It's as if Scum or Rust went and had a baby with Destroy All Humans, and this is what you get. Expect lots of inserts of the X-Files, themes and gifs when I start covering this in more detail in the future. This could probably go in the survival and building simulation games, but it's got that atmosphere of sci-fi. Obviously it's trying to survive on a red dusty planet. Yep, you've heard that one before. This is Mars Occupy, where you will be primarily trying to set up a colony for yourself, growing plants, crops, and basically making sure that you've got the right equipment and tools to succeed on Mars. I do believe it's only single player though, but you will have the help of a Android doggo, and yeah, it's looking more realistic and I would say more grounded than some of the other survival games you're probably used to, and hopefully it can add a little bit more and not just be simply a building simulator. But I'm not really expecting some Mars-like insect creatures to hop out of the ground and start attacking you. Definitely a bit more chilled this one. I could have easily put Outbreak Island in my zombies and mutants section, but I still feel it's got a bit more just sci-fi vibe. You will be encountering some lurching zombie type creatures, but the main focus of the game is solving the mystery of where all the townsfolk have disappeared from. It's probably got a little bit more in common with games like Outlast than maybe just traditional straight up survival, but you will need food and water as you explore pretty dark and dank environments, trying to gather enough evidence to prove that something dodgy is going on. You will also be fighting off against all sorts of normal creatures like bears and wolves. There isn't complete full base building, but you will be able to set up camps or even your own greenhouse, maybe trying to set up a place to record some of the strange goings on. The camera isn't just there for evidence, it's also a tool to fight off against these zombie-like mutant creatures, to flash them and hopefully give you a vital few seconds to cave their head in with a metal pipe. Single player only, expecting it around the middle of 2022. Dysterria is going to be a PvP open world survival game where you'll be constructing your own bases, unlocking brand new technology, advanced equipment and tools, and taking on other players, as well as lots of creatures and enemies that will parade around this prison planet. They had a beta a little while ago and it was fairly decent. I got a chance to take part in it. The main enemies, if there's not many players around, are these robotic creatures that you're going to have to fight off. I don't think it's the most unique game, but it's definitely one of the few sci-fi based survival open world games coming next year, and PvP ones are a little bit short too. Maybe you can combine some halo jumps with some slick gunplay, taking on other players as you fight for control of this prison planet. So State of Decay 3 hasn't actually got a full-blown release date, but it was announced last year, so I would expect hopefully some news about it releasing in 2022 soon. The rumours are, according to Undead Labs' former founder, who started up his own new studio, is that they're returning to the vision that they originally wanted the State of Decay series to go, and that is full-blown online MMO. Now, while I appreciate some of you guys have really enjoyed the classic single player or co-op action that you can play with just your friends, it has got a bit stale, and the big criticism of the second sequel was that it was just by the numbers, didn't really offer anything brand new or big. I think for sure, whatever the sequel brings, it's got to offer something different and compelling and can't be just more of the same stuff. So opening it up to maybe online capabilities, whether that's PvP or simply just still being able to help other people as you fight off the hordes of the tweakers and the zombies, then I'm totally down for that. Especially when you factor in that it looks like a lot more creatures are going to be zombified in the upcoming sequel. I've never really got behind the State of Decay series, so I'm hoping the third time's the charm for this one. Obviously single player, multiplayer hopefully, and yeah, maybe MMO. Fractured Veil's been doing the rounds in the last few months as it successfully launched its Kickstarter program, and with good reason. It's got unique potential for being a tropical Dead Island / Rust survival game where you'll be facing off against other players if you choose, but also going exploring and taking part in missions and varied activities. You'll be fighting off zombies, possibly other creatures, and yes, occasionally other players, where the game developers are really trying to make this a more unique experience, using drones and all sorts of technology to get around. Hopefully we're going to start seeing some more news about an early access release date soon, but I'm predicting towards the end of 2022 for this one. Without doubt, my most anticipated game of 2022 is Sons of the Forest. Recently revealed that it would be coming in 2022, a small delay as they originally did plan the end of 2021. It's looking gorgeous, absolutely using that photorealism to good effect, alongside a brand new companion as you explore a brand new site taking on the mutant creatures that were left from the original game. The story has you as Timmy, the lone survivor from the first game, actually going back to the island and trying to discover and unravel more mysteries. Expect more guns, more ammunition, and loads of different ways to craft, loot and gather resources as you fight off some of the most horrific and scariest creatures I've ever come across in a survival game. Add new mechanics like being able to dig underground and unearth dungeons, and yep, Sons of the Forest is absolutely up there as one of the biggest and hopefully going to be the best survival games when it releases in early access on Steam next year. Expect revamped and expanded building options and a whole lot more, a sequel to one of the best and biggest survival games of recent years. The Forest is actually one of the most downloaded survival games you can play on a PlayStation, and it is one of the highest rated reviewed on Steam. High expectations for number 2. End-Night games haven't always been the best at communicating, they're very elusive, so fingers crossed they start actually feeding us a little bit more info and giving a bit more insight into what Sons of the Forest could offer. The Day Before looks like a mix between The Division and DayZ, and I'm all down for that. We still haven't really had a successful game like that ticks all my boxes. DayZ was buggy and broken and took too long. The Division didn't have enough survival mechanics, so I'm totally down for surviving in city and countryside scapes as I explore, loot, gather resources and fight off, yes, zombies, as well as other players. The gameplay shown off so far probably is staged to high heaven, but it still looks pretty decent. It looks pretty simple. I like the UI systems and it's all just very basic, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. Now the studio behind this game have got a bit of a checkered past, but the publisher is one of the biggest mobile supporting game developers in the world, so expect big things from this game eventually when it does release in 2022. Hopefully they can carry on innovating, doing something a little bit more unusual with the zombie action and mixing up the PvP combat so it isn't a lot of griefing. It does look like base building won't necessarily be a huge thing, but you will have somewhere to call home to hopefully decorate a little bit. The game's promising all sorts of varied transport options, as well as a NPC hub area where you'll be able to go and sell, converse with other players and do a lot more. Given they've had so many delays in just revealing teasers and trailers this year, it's a safe bet to say that yeah, hold your fingers tight for release in 2022. But so far, the gameplay, staged or not, does look fantastic. Another zombie open world survival MMO game that has been talked about for years now, and yep, absolutely has figured out it's not as easy as making games as you think it is. Dead Matter was promising the world all throughout its early pre-alpha development and talking about how it's going to be bigger and better than certain other games like DayZ. It experienced a bit of a backlash once the game was actually in backers' hands from a successful Kickstarter program. People expect the games not to necessarily be running that well, but there was so much missing, even just for the alpha, that players kind of revolted. The devs have also gone through stages of being a bit silent, and there seems to be some behind the scenes troubles with lots of go-ins and come-ins from the developers themselves. That said, they're still communicating every single week, usually with some sort of dev update vlog, and it looks like eventually they could potentially come good, but they probably need some more experienced hands and heads around them, and hopefully some help from a more experienced publisher. With delay after delay, postponement after postponement, don't expect Dead Matter to appear at any point before the end of 2022. Zombie games don't always have to be dark, dingy and scary. How about a bit more of a colourful one? This is Survival Machine, and the idea is that you are on a kind of big vehicle that is always in motion. As it goes through different landscapes and biomes, you will have to jump off, gather resources, fight off zombies and get back and set up defences and fortifications to stop the zombie horde from attacking your machine. It's pretty interesting. The tower defense aspects of it I'm down for, and it looks okay. At the moment, the art style is definitely taken from some sort of storefront, so I'm hoping that we will start seeing their own take on what the art will be in the future. But even so, even if it is all just shot bought, if the mechanics are there, I'm definitely down for trying something a bit more unique. Expect co-op, and let's hope this snazzy little trailer is going to be something reflective of the gameplay. And finishing off our zombie and mutant section with Dying Light 2. It may be more of an action-adventure open-world game rather than pure survival, but I would say running away from hordes of hungry zombies, all the while completing missions, upgrading tools and unlocking new skills and abilities is a bit more akin to survival than you would think. With its new release date of February 2022, let's hope this will be the final one. They've had umpteenth delays, a huge amount of problems behind the scenes apparently, But the gameplay does look pretty decent. I never got into the first one, but I'm interested in how the second one will play out, with a bigger selection of mutant zombies to fight against and more factions and story to take part in, with a different way to traverse the world, as you're seeing here as well. Undoubtedly, the hype and excitement means that this will be one of the biggest games of the year, and let's just hope it matches our expectations. I would say that Salt, the first game in this series, was almost a cult classic when it launched a good few years ago. Had so many of the right components, but just needed a bit more experience. Well, the developers have got that now. A successful Kickstarter program has meant that Salt 2 is on its way, with procedurally generated landscapes, loot, dungeons and much more. It is going to be single player to begin with, but they are hopeful of adding co-op multiplayer in the future too. Another game I like that is bright and breezy rather than just too realistic at times. Fighting off other pirates and possibly other creatures, Salt 2 is looking pretty decent. You've got more customisations for the ship now. They're promising so much more in terms of what you can do to decorate and make the ship yours, and different types of ships to travel around the world. Fingers crossed we start hearing a bit more about an actual potential release date, but I'm expecting at some point mid 2022. Renown has got high hopes, and I ain't gonna lie, I nearly didn't include it because I still think it's far away from an actual potential release. But these hobbyist creators have gone into this now and have got the backing from an Indiegogo campaign, and it looks like they're trying to bring basically Rust into a medieval setting. There will be PvP, of course. There will be base or settlement storming, utilising a bunch of siege weapons and of course a vast array of melee weapons. It's been a while since we had a decent medieval survival game come about, so I'm hopeful that Renown does kind of launch itself, and yeah, we start seeing more news about releases. But if it does come, it'll be the very end of 2022. Myth Empires is leaning into ancient Asian history as you forge an empire with hundreds, possibly even thousands of players fighting for control over a huge landscape. There is PvE options if you don't necessarily like going up against other players, with a more unique tone being that you can take farmers, NPCs and get them to come work for you by force or by gentle offer. These NPCs will till the land for you or form a war party and help you take and conquer other lands. With lots of siege warfare and devices and a huge choice in swords, weapons, skills, it's looking to be a proper big fully fleshed MMO. I got a chance to play it most recently, and yeah, it's shaping up to be something special if they can iron out a few kinks and obviously work on a bit of polish. Obvious comparisons to Mount and Blade, sure, why not, but in a proper MMO setting. There is some talk that the game may even launch before 2022, but I would say early in the year. Lightspeed Frontier is looking gorgeous. It's a farming crafting game where you will be running around in your mech suits with up to 4 other players at least, and it's coming to Xbox. You'll gather, you'll get resources, you'll build up your cozy little cottage, find loot from rare resources and hopefully upgrade and get better weapons and tools. Another colourful addition to the world of survival and crafting instead of just dark and realistic. Wonderlust is in alpha at the moment and it's been doing pretty decent. Loads of showcasing of clips of how progress is going with the development of the game, and it had another successful Kickstarter program, so I'm expecting it to hit early access very soon. It's obviously aping games like Don't Starve as you run around a 2D environment gathering resources, killing creatures and eventually building up your bases. You will be fighting off, yes, zombies, so I probably could have included it in that section, but I thought it was just a bit too cute to have it in that category. With some interesting mini games as you take part and explore the world, yeah, it's looking cool. I think I've mentioned a few games that I'm expecting to be my most anticipated, that I'm really looking forward to trying, and yeah, okay, probably too many, but Little Devil Inside is definitely one of them games. It's got a unique premise mixing Monster Hunter style mechanics where you explore a kind of semi-open world where it's more unique structures, encounters, bit like sort of Japanese role-playing games like Final Fantasy VII back in the day, and obviously you're going to have lots of components where you prepare and get ready for battle against a whole bunch of supernatural entities to do research and hopefully compile a compendium of all the weird wonderful creatures. With a great art style, lots of humour, a story focus and just different ways to traverse the environment with all sorts of vehicles and mounts, it's looking really special, Little Devil Inside, and it has now been confirmed releasing in 2022. The final category, dinosaurs and bugs. Gona has been in development a while, again another successful Kickstarter program, but they now have the backing of a publisher, so they have delayed their initial early access release to work and polish on the game a little bit more. You may have seen some demos or gameplay shown off by various content creators earlier on this year, and I actually had the chance to take a look at the game first a good while ago. It's looking interesting, a mix between Green Hell and possibly Ark Survival Evolved, but not really. You won't be running around taming creatures, instead you'll be surviving, thriving and running away from most of the dinosaurs that you meet, as they're all just way too dangerous. Given the extra time they're going to be taking to develop it, I'm thinking maybe end of 2022 for this one, as you gather, hunt, get more resources, build up your own little base as you explore a kind of semi-open world. I know so many of you old boomers out there long for the days of a Turok game, a survival open world game with lots of dinosaurs and lots of guns. Instinction might be the closest thing you'll come across. It's a little bit unusual. You'll be running around a seemingly open world, fighting off lots of creatures and dinosaurs, all the while trying to get brand new upgrades and weapons. There will be moments where you need to be a bit stealthy, as some of the creatures look a bit too deadly even for you and your big gun. This one kind of popped out of nowhere earlier on this year. They have just revealed a brand new trailer for the game, so I will take a deeper dive into it in the future, but I'm expecting it to be a single player only experience. Not really taming dinosaurs in this one, just shoot them as much as possible and then possibly running away. And of course we're on to the big guns, Ark Survival Evolved 2, the sequel to one of the biggest and most popular survival games ever. Ark has sold over 18 million copies of its game on Xbox, PlayStation and PC, and it's a huge phenomenon now. Thousands of hours, regularly in the top 20 most played games of all time on Steam, and one of the most popular on Xbox and PlayStation 2. No doubt about it, the sequel will absolutely be hype. Can it learn from years of mistakes with updates, problems and issues? Probably not, this is wildcard, but undoubtedly they do know how to hype something up. With old Big Vin Diesel being front and centre of the next sequel, promising more of the same from Ark, open world, survival, PvP components and PvE, Ark 2 will tick a lot of boxes. I really hope they are going to make true on some of the words that are coming out of developers, that it is going to be more of a primitive style survival experience, not heavily reliant on technology as the Ark original game has become. I guess the only last note of sadness is it's going to be an Xbox and PC launch exclusive, with no confirmation at all that it will be launching on the PlayStation in the far future. New creatures, new biomes, new ways to play, I'm looking forward to it undoubtedly, even if I have lost a bit of love for the original game over the years. And to finish the video off, Smalland. I am looking forward to this one. Some people compared it to Grounded, maybe a bit too much, not realising that this was actually in development way before Grounded even was a thing. It's promising a little bit more grown up fantasy vibe with the elements of survival, as you run around taking on all sorts of insects, as well as being able to tame and ride them. Base building, some components of PvP also being added in the future as well. It's looking pretty special. I'm loving the idea of these bases too. The game is promising to focus on story and this idea that you are forging a path for your fellow little Smallanders as you go and explore, take over the world and build up your civilization again. Scary spider bug fights, lots of crafting and lots of choice in weapons and armour, and that's what you're going to probably get with Smallands. And there we go, I'm sure there's a few I probably could have included, but look out for future videos where I dive deeper into some of these games. Even if it is still more list videos, I'll do much more fleshed out talking about some of the dinosaur games releasing, the PvP survival games coming out, and some of the more crafty friendly ones. As I mentioned at the start of the video, you can check out my second channel and see more crafty, chilled experiences in survival if you really want to. And that's it, until next time rat bags, go check out the rest of my survival content and I'll be back with some of them other videos I've talked about very soon. Bye bye.